Hey everyone, before we get into this episode, I want to let you know about my free guidebook called Music Production Essentials. It's a brief rundown of my top 24 takeaways that I've learned over the course of interviewing so many audio professionals for this podcast. So just go to secretsonics.co and you'll see the image. It's a totally free download and I hope it helps you with your productions. Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in once again to Secret Sonics. I'm taking 2 weeks off because we reached 100 episodes and I just need a break. So I'm taking a couple weeks to kind of re-energize and kind of catch my breath here. So in the meantime, I figured I'd release some older episodes that maybe didn't get as much attention as I thought they should have. So I'm going to re-release this episode first. This is with Phil Barnes. I recorded this episode about a year ago. And why not re-release it? This is a great episode, great conversation that I had with Phil. I think you're going to love it. And I'll be back in a couple weeks with some brand new episodes for you. So in the meantime, enjoy this episode of Secret Sonics and keep you posted. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Phil Barnes. Phil is a multi-genre record producer, songwriter, and recording artist based in Nashville, Tennessee. He's currently producing and writing for artists and bands in Nashville and Los Angeles. As a producer and songwriter, Phil has collaborated with artists and bands including Small Pools, Julia Shear, Chris Allen, Liz Longley, Jake Etheridge, and many others. As a recording artist, Barnes has toured the U.S., opening for Kelly Clarkson, Shawn Mendes, Jessie J, Nick Jonas, and We the Kings, in addition to his own headlining efforts. As of 2019, Phil Barnes' time and attention is devoted to developing and recording artists and bands from his studio located in Nashville, Tennessee. Former Secret Sonics guest Sam Moses recommended I reach out to Phil, who has graciously agreed to join me on the show. So welcome to Secret Sonics, Phil.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So tell us a bit about how you got started getting involved in music production.
Yeah, so I didn't start as a producer. I started out as an artist, and I kind of grew up playing in some bands in high school and doing the coffee shop sort of thing. I remember my 17th birthday, I played a gig at a Starbucks. That was like my thing, and I was setting up my little PA system in the corner there and playing for tips, and I kind of got into the live scene through that and did it a little bit through college, just kind of playing in hotel bars, and then I started branching out a little bit, doing some shows that were throughout Florida. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, but I started doing some shows in some towns that were like 3-4 hours north, just kind of floating around a little bit and trying to build up a bit of a name as I could, lugging all the gear into the Ford Focus and driving around and, getting it done. But I was studying psychology and business in college, and it wasn't my thing. I was not having a great time. I was going out every night and playing gigs and, skipping classes so I could go play shows elsewhere. And end of my sophomore year of college, my brother passed away, and I had a really big moment of like, well, I'm either going to continue on doing this thing where I'm like faking that I enjoy college and that I'm going to be able to get this done. And, I promised to my parents I'm going to be able to do this, or I could go and pursue this really lofty goal of chasing music. And I just felt like after being hit with such a wave of like, oh, life is super, super, super temporary, how could I choose anything else other than going to do music? So I made the choice about a month after he passed to just completely pull out of college and just start pursuing music completely. And so that led me into a lot more touring and starting to build up a little bit of a live career. And I didn't really have a record to go off of. I had a bunch of recordings that I made with some friends, or I had some garage band stuff that I was working on. And I decided that I wanted to make a record. So I went up to Nashville, Tennessee with a guy named Aaron Krause, who's an incredible artist in his own right, but he's also a great producer. And we ended up making a record. And in the midst of making that record, I had another one of those moments where it was just like, okay, cool. This is another pivoting point for you. Like, do you really want to be an artist, or are you actually maybe enjoying making this record more than you think, And so I had a moment where I was just like, oh shoot, like I don't even want to go out and try to promote this or like go on the road anymore. Like I love the spirit of creating this music so much. How can I do this all the time? And thankfully Nashville has a really robust writing scene. I feel like more so than any city. I mean, LA is amazing, but Nashville just has this community that's so built around songs. And so I was really able to dive in deep through some friends that were already really well connected within the writing community to start working with artists and writers that were working on projects that they needed more hands in. So back at that time, early 2017, the whole like track guy thing wasn't really a thing in the writing community. You know, there was people that did demos and there were people that recorded artists, but there wasn't really this like idea of a producer being in the room to create the sonics of something while the writers are working on it. So I had an iPad at the time, and I started making beats on an iPad during these writes, literally plugging it into a keyboard amp, and these artists were writing to it, and we would cut a really quick vocal on it through just like a USB microphone I'd plug into the iPad, and then they would leave they would leave with the song. And I found that artists and writers that I'm working with, the songs tend to have a lot more legs when they had something super tangible to leave with. So, I mean, at that time, man, I was doing easily 2 writes a day, sometimes 3. So we would get up and we would, I was working a lot with my buddy Evan Gibb, who's an incredible songwriter. He works a lot in TV film now. But at the time, we were both kind of pushing into the pop country scene. And so we were writing with artists and writers. We do one write from like 10 to 2, and then we have another write from 3 to 6, and then sometimes another write from 7 to 10, and then just be shelling out these songs. So in the course of a year, we both built up like together, I mean, 150, 200 songs easily that we were working on with other people. You're like
putting in your 10,000 hours.
Exactly right.
Like getting it done.
Exactly right. And looking back on that now, I'm so grateful for it because it made me the producer I get to be today because I was working so much. And not everything was great. Majority of it was terrible. Like it just wasn't songs that were going to cut it, you know? And you know, maybe that's what Nashville does. There's so much being created here that you find that the great songs that remain are truly great. And the ones that don't cut it, you're just like, well, that was a learning lesson and it'll lead to the next song. So I got a lot of try-ons for working with artists and kind of building up a bit of a repertoire with people that were building their career at the time. So, man, I got into that. And then eventually that turned into being a little too busy on the writing side. And I started getting a lot of artists that were hitting me up to finish these songs out that we were originally demoing. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'll dive into this a little bit more. And for the past, I'd say probably 3 years now, that's been, probably 2.5, 3 years. That's been my whole thing is like really diving deep with artists on records. That is something that they really want to make a statement with. So to give you an example, a lot of times what I'll have happen is I'll be writing with an artist, you know, I'll meet them through so-and-so, and I'll meet them through, a publisher, another connected, an A&R at a label, and they'll come and we'll work together and we'll work on writing a couple songs, and eventually we build up a vibe together of something that feels like it could be a thing for them. So as long as we start getting, as long as we get along really well, we get into the room again. And then if we get the okay from whoever's on their team, we'll end up diving in for a week or two, create a bunch of songs, and then try to pick a couple singles out of that. And then I'll finish it out. And there's kind of 2 schools of thought when it comes to approaching production and writing this way. And a lot of people think of it as like, let's collect the most songs that we can and then just decide. But for me, I really like to get to know my artists really well and then assemble everything I can around them. So I find them great writers. I find them great players. I find them great mixing engineers, mastering engineers. And I really like being the guy who's putting together the whole vision with the artist. You know, it's not me going, I got this dope beat and you're going to love it and go ahead and cut your vocal on it and we'll just get it out. It's like, no, I really want to dive in deep with my artists and figure out what they loved growing up, what they love now, where they haven't been pushed before, and then just dive in as deep as we can and really try to get something special. So for me, man, like, it's all long-term relationships in this business, and I'm grateful to have a lot of them in flow right now.
Wow, it sounds like you have patience to play that long game, and you're also, you have like a lack of ego to be happy to collaborate with other artists and other producers and other mixers and all these, like, just like being like, you know, enough, I guess, down to earth enough to know like who's going to help each artist the most in different respects. You know what I mean?
Exactly, because it's so easy to just think, well, I can do everything, and you might be able to, but can someone do it better? Is there something that's not happening in the song that could be enhanced by someone who's the best in the world at it? And Nashville is so great about that in the sense of like, and even with like the ability to be able to work remotely with people now, you can have the best players in the world on your record. You know what I mean? Like it's incredible access. And I think as soon as you start, like you said, letting that ego go of, oh, I'm the best person to do this thing, is when the songs start getting better, and you have a lot more, when more people are involved. To me, it just feels like everything has more legs. It's going to go farther.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So tell me about the artists that you're working with today. Like how do you choose who you're going to work with and who you want to dive deep with?
Yeah, everything is word of mouth. Thankfully, I haven't really had to do a lot of marketing per se here in town or online or anything. It's mostly come out of relationships that I built over the last 4 or 5 years of being here in Nashville, that have been writers that I've worked with previously that are building their artist careers now, or there have been artists that have been blossoming for a while that are ready to make something of a statement record. So most of the time it's people reaching out that are somewhat aware of what I do. And so I'm not really trying to have to be something that I'm not. When someone's getting into the room with me, they pretty much know what we're going to go for, and I try to be as much of a chameleon as I can, and in letting the artist shine through in that, and letting them really express who they are, and not be so genre bent on what I'm doing. But I definitely have a thing that I think most people are aware of when we get in the room. So most of the people that I work with that are in my world are artists that are building up their career and looking to finally make something,
That's awesome. And like, what stage are the songs that they're working on when they meet with you? Like, are you helping them write the songs, or they usually come with like a fully fleshed out song?
I get both. So there's some artists that I work with that have the songs that they've been working for the last couple of years, working with different writers here in town or LA, and then they'll be like, "Hey, I got these songs; they're all in demo land. I really want to take them to a final." And then I have artists that I work with on a writing sense, and we'll have stuff that we build together that starts out as an idea and is fleshed out enough to be something that can convince people to get to the finish line, or you get enough of the idea. But it's a mix. So a lot of times I'll get a record that will come from writing with them on it. I'll get a couple songs on there that I've written with them, and then I'll finish it out. And then they'll be like, "Hey, I got these other 3 songs that I've been waiting to cut. Can we put them into the pile and make it cohesive?" So it's a mix. Some of them I'm in from the start, from the absolute beginning, and then some of them are ones that have come from other places and other great writers.
Amazing. And I love how you said like how, you're bringing in all these different people to do different aspects of the song. What do you think is like your thing? Like, what's the secret sauce that you bring to the table in the production world?
I really lean into the darker side of pop. Like I really think most of the stuff that I do leans a lot darker than what most producers go for, at least in Nashville. So for stuff that's a little more minimalistic and dark, I'm probably your guy.
Nice. Yeah. I could hear that in the tracks I listened to before we started the recording. So what are you listening for the first time you hear a song? Like, what do you want to hear?
That's such a good question. Man, okay, so the truth is, I never hear lyrics on a first listen. It's always melody for me. And if the melody is amazing, I'll give it another listen. And from that point, I'll hear the production. And then from maybe 10, 12 listens in, I'll start hearing the lyrics.
But, you're like me.
Yeah, man. It's so funny. Like I used to think, oh, I'm a lyric guy. Like I love lyrics. Yeah, but it's almost like dating a song. You know what I mean? Like you don't really get into the lyrics until you're a few listens in, until you're a few dates in. You don't really know what's going on with this thing. You just know whether you like it or not. And I feel melody initially can be so intuitive. And I think it's oftentimes the first thing that the writer or artist is making in the room. Before the production is made, before even some of the lyrics are written, there's these like mumbles and these like beautiful bits of oohs and ahs that become the melody that the rest is built on. So for me, I always hear that first. And like my ears are always perked that if I have an artist or a writer in the back of the room that's working on something while I have a track going, I am always listening for something that's going to perk my ears. And like whenever I hear something, I turn around and make sure we address it and make sure we get a mic on them, because melodies can be lost so quick, but to me, they're the most important thing in a song.
Right. They're just like transient.
Yes.
Come and go.
Yes. It's so instant, man. It's so instant. You know, like for me, I know when I hear a song and I'm immediately captivated, it's because of the melody.
Amazing. So when you're getting into the production, I guess, how do you usually get the ball rolling? Like what?
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily start on a specific instrument, other than I never start with drums. It's almost always coming off of some sort of chordal instrument.